Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we're looking at Captain Atom issue 10. And Captain Atom, like the cover says, is not in this book. In fact, he is sequestered in an embassy with the JLI. And this is Justice League International issue 8 crossover, sort of. It just references that is happening and that most of the team is sequestered in the embassy. And here, because that is going on in the regular Justice League International book, Captain Atom is not in this one. So that's kind of a neat little trick they're pulling here. If you've read the JLI story, this is definitely going to tie into that in some respect. So we see Dr. Magala and Babylon working out in their little gym area. Dr. Magala decides to do a little bit of research, but that's when he finds out that Captain Atom is in the embassy and they're sequestered in there for whatever reason. Then we cut over to this lady Sissy, who is Sissy Houston. She works for the newspaper where Mabel worked, and she's trying to find out what happened to Mabel to prove that Dr. Spectro may have killed her, and she's made some sort of contact in the Pentagon. So in the meantime, Dr. Magala and Babylon go up to the clinic where he was treated for his condition to see an old friend of his. Babylon wants to get him out of the house, get him something to do, but Babylon has to give up his gun to do it. They go in there, and Dr. Magala used to play chess with this guy, Dr. Sarek, Anton Sarek. He was referenced in a previous issue where Dr. Magala was having a nightmare. We don't really know the full story behind those two, but that's gonna come in another issue, I'm pretty sure. Well, anyway, one of the inmates who was mopping the floor, a guy named Homer, goes a little crazy. Because some of these people in this facility are slightly disturbed. So he manages to get his hands on the gun, shoots one of the attendees, and holds everybody else hostage. Then we jump over to the Pentagon, who are monitoring the situation with the Justice League International very carefully, and apparently Captain Atom has been spying on them, generating reports and threat assessments. And now we have different levels of threat. So we've got the Justice League lineup here. We've got Batman, who's labeled an orange, Blue Beetle and Black Canary are green, Rocket Red number 7 is a red, Green Lantern number 3, which is Guy Gardner, he's a red, Martian Manhunter yellow, Booster Gold green, and Mr. Miracle green. So it's pretty interesting that apparently they're monitoring the Justice League for so-called non-American activities, and they've been openly declared a non-American alliance. So Captain Atom is their guy on the inside, and these files are proving to be valuable to the government. I know that's something that's addressed much later in the series, so we'll get to that eventually. But there's this bald guy that's there that is also real interested in what's going on because the lieutenant says that files are valuable, and the bald guy says among other organizations than the government. We find that as a plot point. They've also referenced the Major Force project, which Major Force is going to make his inaugural appearance, I believe, in Annual 1, if I remember correctly. I'm looking forward to reading that because Major Force was a pretty wicked supervillain. I don't know if he's still kicking around or not. So the hostage taker lets 3 guys go to get word out that he wants things. He wants to see his wife and daughter, and he wants a jet, and he wants more ammunition. Or he's gonna, do bad things to people. Well, Babylon can't sit by and abide that, so he takes out one of the SWAT team guys, gets to work. Meanwhile, Sissy meets with her contact from the Pentagon, who promptly kills her with a car bomb. And that's when the bald guy that we saw in the Pentagon says, "Sorry, Sissy, but no man or woman escapes the Manhunters." And that's when we find out that they've relaunched the Manhunters, not just for these weird, cult guys from the Far East, but they're actually like a secret organization, and they were kind of sort of bad guys for a while. I think this ties into the Millennium crossover that comes up next issue. I know it was a Millennium Week 4 crossover, so I think it's tied into that, but I can't quite recall. But the Manhunters were a big deal around this time. Anton, who's been in a catatonic state, finally snaps out of it as Babylon is beating the crap out of another SWAT guy on the roof. And the guy in the hostage taker, Homer, takes a shot at Dr. Magala, shatters one of his robot hands, and puts a bullet in his wheelchair before knocking him over. Right as he's doing that, you get this great cut where Babylon is running over across the roof trying to get to Dr. Magala, as the guy says that. Anton speaks up and distracts Homer long enough for Babylon to jump through the window and beat the crap out of the guy. Anton and Dr. Magala shake hands, and try and rekindle their friendship. Just then, the Justice League apparently steps out, and the first person out the door is the newest member, Captain Atom, and that's where the issue ends. Now, I know what I said sounded incredibly boring, but it was actually a really interesting story, and because this is a serialized storyline, I thought they did a really good job for the main character not even appearing in the book. It really does kind of develop these characters a little more. We've got a lot more on Babylon's loyalty, his attempts at humor, and he seems like a really nice guy who's trying to be a really good friend to Dr. Magala. Magala did something to this Anton guy, sold him out or something somewhere along the line, and he's got a lot of guilt about that, so we've learned about that. We learned that the Manhunters are involved here somehow, that Captain Atom is spying on the Justice League International, just as a government loyalist, I suppose. But yeah, Carrie Bates and Greg Weisman did a great job with the story. Pat Broderick, awesome job with pencils. Bob Smith, inker, Carl Gafford, colorist, letterer was Duncan Andrews, and edited by Denny O'Neil. This was a fun issue, despite the main character not being in there. It's a long read. There's a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue, but this is a much more character-driven series than I really expected. There are superhero fights, but it's definitely one of these series that really takes the serialized notion of a visual medium like comic books and puts it to work, and I think that's actually really cool. This, like I keep saying, would have made a great TV series because they really have a very TV feel to it. So yeah, although Captain Atom doesn't appear in this issue, it's still a really good story because it ties a lot of things together that are going to happen and that have already happened with the secondary characters and his pseudo sidekicks. So yeah, I thought it was a real good addition to the series. As an independent book, probably not so much. But overall, a good one I'd recommend if you're going to read Captain Atom. You know, definitely the first 10 issues have been really solid so far. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.